Your being here on the stage of a Jewish film festival and our screening, as you know, has been a real lightning rod for a lot of controversy, and I think you were in the audience when you heard the speaker before the film. I'm wondering how you make sense of that, or do you? Do you get it why the story or your appearance here would exercise so much pain among some members of the Jewish community?
There's been a lot of discussion about that since I've arrived, too, so I've had an opportunity to hear what other people think, but independent of that, I think there are several things. I think it's multiple things. I think a piece of it has to do with still education around Rachel's story. What were people doing there? Who were the ISM? What was it they were trying to accomplish? And even though I think we've tried very hard to put the facts of that out, there's a lot of misinformation available. I think a lot of people go and, we grab at bits of information. We don't always dig real deeply. And so I think there's still a lot of misunderstandings about that could contribute to it. I really think that the controversy that arose, it kind of surprised me in a way because many of you know that there was a play, my name is Rachel Corey, in New York City, and it was to come to the New York Theater Workshop some years ago, and was, even after tickets were ready to be advertised on the internet and so forth, there was the New York Theater Workshop pulled out. And there was a huge response to that from theater people in New York, creative people who didn't like the censorship, from the activist community, but also from a large segment of the Jewish community in New York City. And on the day the play was supposed to come to New York City, Riverside Church was filled to hear Rachel's words and to hear tributes to her and so forth. And the play actually came to New York later to the Minetta Lane Theater. It's been all over the United States. Craig and I went to it in Reykjavik, Iceland. Recently we've seen it in Haifa and so forth. And so I was surprised by this reaction because I think that play had more written about it than any other piece of theater I can imagine before it ever got to the U.S. And it actually had more attention come to it. So I thought maybe people watching that would not think protesting this would meet their purposes or serve their purposes. But I think that what's happening in the discussion has a whole lot less to do with me and with Rachel than it has to do with the discussion that is happening within the Jewish community, which I think is a very healthy discussion. And the fact that there are some parts of the community, I think, that are feel threatened because of their commitment, their allegiance to Israel, and I think their commitment to the status quo. And there are groups like J Street, like Bridzetti, groups that are speaking out, opposing the occupation. And I think that an event like this happening within a Jewish institution, the film festival, this film festival, may seem very threatening to some people. And I do know I've spent 7 years, again, not because I went seeking it, but because people have come to us asking us to speak about this issue, asking to hear Rachel's story. I'm pretty familiar with the wide range of feelings. I just want to say, because I know that people feel so deeply, I did something I've never done. I'm not always a great protester, but I went with Medea Benjamin and some others recently. I was at the APAC conference outside. And one thing that when we were out there and we talked to people, and sometimes there were some very, very heated emotions, and I learned something that day because when it got a little too heated, we started to sing. And it was a very healing thing when we sang. And one woman, an older woman, asked me not to speak to her husband because he was older and he just had such strong feelings. And I looked at her fear, really, because I think she was afraid he might have a heart attack or something because of his strong feelings. And I understood about that. But one thing that Medea said to me is we have to remember that the people that are inside that meeting, even though our views are very, very different from them, they believe they're doing good. And I have a lot of argument with their point of view, but I just hope, I hope for the sake of all the people in Israel and Palestine, and for us right here in the U.S., that we can have the dialogue that needs to happen, but more than dialogue, the action that needs to happen to bring an end to the trauma.
Plenty of time for our audience to ask questions. If your questions are not questions, then they don't really count. So, a couple of ground rules. Again, repeating courtesy and respect. You can disagree with points you've seen, but please pose your comments in the form of a question and limit your questions to less than a minute. So we want to get a lot of you. So we have volunteers here, actually staff members, Carrie and Grant. We're going to try to alternate aisle to aisle, and let yourself be known to one of them, and we'll get your questions going.